Hey friends, welcome back to Heretical Hippies, where Anna and Carrie Jo wander back into the wreckage of their deconstruction to see if they can offer hope to anyone else who might be climbing out of the dust and ashes of their faith. Buckle up, it's about to get real. Hey Heretical Hippies, it's Carrie Jo and Anna.
Hi, everybody.
And we have a really amazing guest today, Leslie Nease. Hey, Leslie, glad you're here with us today.
So excited to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So, listeners, Leslie was on Survivor China. And if you're a Survivor fan like Anna and I, you are going to want to listen because we're going to get into Survivor stuff after we hear Leslie's story, her life story. So, Leslie, now that we have you here, we finally made it work to get together and to hear your story, to ask you questions. We'd love for you to start by telling us, who is Leslie Nease?
Who am I? I am a mother of four. I've just celebrated my 35th anniversary with my husband, Rod. We live in the beautiful mountains of Utah, and we moved here about 6 years ago from the Bible Belt of South Carolina, where I was a Christian radio host and a writer and a speaker and all of that good stuff. I was very much into the Christian evangelical faith, and even on Survivor was known as Sister Christian. So, but I started deconstructing probably back in 2016, and then moving here to Utah and getting away from my comfort zone, the Bible Belt bubble, if you will, and honestly living among a completely different religion, which is, the LDS faith is here mostly, really kind of helped me, help push me into a direction of being able to kind of figure out what I believe for myself. And so for about 5 years, I was very quiet and quietly deconstructed, tried to figure out what it was that I believed, what I didn't believe. And then I guess about a year or so ago, I started speaking out about it more publicly, and mostly in an effort, kind of felt like I was living a double life, like everybody on Facebook, pretty much Facebook, and Instagram, I think they kind of get where I'm at, but everybody on Facebook from my past still saw me as Sister Christian, and I felt like I was being disingenuous. I didn't like not being real. So I started speaking out about where I was at, and as I was doing that, I was realizing so many people are reaching out to me saying, "Oh my gosh, you're saying exactly what I'm thinking. I can't believe it. Like, I thank you so much." And I realized there's just such a need for people in the community to, be vocal about it, and not in a ugly way, but in a "I love you, but it's just not where I'm at anymore" kind of way. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And now I have a podcast called Honoring the Journey, and it started in January. And so I just honor the journeys of people who are going through either a faith transition, or maybe you're from a different faith, because I think that we can learn a lot from each other if we're not afraid of each other. And so we do that. And I just wrote a book through Choir Publishing that should be out late this year called Honoring the Journey, the Deconstruction of Sister Christian, where I share my journey. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that deconstruction journey looked like for you? You said for about 5 years, you were kind of just behind the curtain, doing your thing, figuring it out. What did that process entail?
Well, I think initially it was the thing I think that really started me thinking in that direction was being on Survivor and being exposed to so many different people from different, walks of life, different faiths, different communities and cultures. And it was just such an eye-opening experience for somebody who was coming from a very Christian bubble, buckle of the Bible Belt, literally on Christian radio. You know what I mean? It was very intense for me. And I just loved this kid on my tribe named Todd, who was, he was a gay Mormon flight attendant, which is hilarious. I don't even, I don't know how that works, but he was so great, and I loved him so much. And I came back and I started asking questions about the LGBTQ, and I didn't love the answers I was getting. But then I would say, but the Bible says it, so shut up, Leslie. Your opinion doesn't matter. Who cares if you don't think it makes sense? Who cares? So I would just push it away, push it away, push it away. But I don't know. And then the 2016 election, and I said, man, they're so wrong about Donald Trump, in my opinion. This doesn't seem right. Like, why are we so like anti-Clinton and what he did? And yet when Donald Trump has the exact same kind of, life where he's like cheating and all that, all of a sudden it's okay because he's got our agenda. He wants to do things for us. So it's okay. We're not electing a pastor. And so then I started thinking, okay, if that's how they're going to look at this, what else have they been teaching me that could be wrong? So that's when I just kind of pulled away a little bit, not a lot. Like I still kept my toe in the water, with ministry and in Christian radio. I was doing some voice tracking and everything. But, when it started to get really intense, I would say, 2020 was when I really was like, okay, I can't even pretend anymore that I agree with any of this. This is starting to really irritate me. I had to pull away from ministry. And so it was, a lot of reading, a lot of listening to podcasts, a lot of trying to find voices that were saying what I was feeling. Because it's very hard to go through deconstruction when you are not really, there's nobody around you going through it. So you seek out that community, and I did that online.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I remember going through, my husband and I, when we were going through our own personal deconstruction, we had one or two friends, really just a couple of friends that were long distance that we talked to weekly, sometimes daily, to process what we were going through, because it felt like we were learning to swim or walk all over again, and
it's learning so much. I mean, it's like your language changes, but you still know the old language. So you still hear that voice that is like, but what if you're wrong? And what if this? And, but anytime I've learned if it brings up like a fear, like an afraid kind of fear, I just ditch it now. I just can't do this anymore. I can't be afraid anymore to be who I am, to love who I want to love. And when I look at the life of Jesus, I don't see him walking in fear at all. I see him walking in confidence and love and acceptance and kindness and humility, but speaking out when it needed to be spoken out, like to the religious people, who were, putting rules and obligations on top of people and ostracizing and, I don't know, us versus theming, I feel like that's the only time he really spoke out. He didn't yell at the sinners, quote unquote, he yelled at the people who thought they weren't.
So tell us a little bit about how, you've shared a little bit how your faith unraveled. How did that affect your family?
Well, my husband he unraveled before I did. But he did it very quietly because he knew that my faith was so important to me, and he didn't want to be the reason that I would start questioning. He needed me to go through my own process, and he respected that about me. So he was very supportive. But for a long time, I didn't even tell him because I didn't understand what was happening. I really thought, I don't know if you girls understand this way of thinking, but like when I left to go discover and ask the questions and give myself permission to explore, I really expected to have answers that lined up with what I was taught. I expected the answers to be, okay, now I know the answer. Now I can stay without these questions. And so it was very confusing for me as I was doing, research in church history and when different, things like the rapture and hell and all the things that terrified me as a believer. And even homosexuality, understanding like that wasn't even a word until 1868. How did it get in the Bible that was written 2,000 years ago? You know what I mean? Like it just started to not really make sense to me. And then that's when I kind of was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is bigger than I thought. That's when I finally said something to my husband, and he was like, oh yeah, babe, I've been there. It's the way I get it. I've felt this way for a long time. I was like, oh, okay. And my kids were, they're all grown at this point, grown and flown. But they've all kind of gone through their own deconstruction themselves. My son really never even constructed, I think. He just kind of always thought, this isn't good. This isn't what I want for my life. And I used to pray and cry and be so sad, like, God, please save him. He's going to go to hell. I remember speaking at a retreat once, and a couple of women got saved, quote unquote. And I was like, yeah, this is so great. And I was trying to celebrate. But as I was like praising God for, the two salvations, I all of a sudden was like, but my son, I can't even get my son saved. And it was like, you can celebrate all you want, Leslie, but, Satan still has your son. And it was a constant sadness that I can't even express as a mom, thinking that my son was going to burn in hell forever and there was nothing I could do. And yet, and this is the weird thing, I saw Jesus more in him than anybody that I'd ever known in my life. Like, he was so humble and kind, and he fought for the oppressed, and he was very, about equality, and he was kind of like a hippie, you know what I mean? And he even said to me, he took time 1 or 2 years where he just hopped trains and like went all over the country and just met people and played his banjo for money. Like, he didn't have to be in that situation. He had parents that would provide. He didn't want it. He wanted to figure it out himself. He said that's what Jesus would do. He didn't have a home. He didn't have money. He just kind of like walked around and met people. And I was like, wow, like maybe he's taking it a little more seriously than me even. You know what I mean? It just looked different. It didn't look like the Bible Belt stereotypical Christian that I thought it needed to look like. And, my 3 daughters, they all kind of were with me for the most part, and my oldest daughter even, graduated from college and was a missionary in somewhere in Asia. I can't remember the name. Oh, Cambodia, for a while. And, and so they've had their own journeys, but like we're all sort of now on the same page. And I've gotten therapy. Take this very seriously. I've had a coach. I'm like always talking about it and thinking about it because I'm just so sad that not only I was taught these things, but I taught it, so much of this stuff. And, when I try to talk to my kids, they're like, Mom, it's not that big of a deal to us. You're making way too much. I'm like, no, but, the trauma. And they're like, yeah, but, and I was talking to a friend the other day and she goes, well, of course they're not traumatized. You have sat them down and you've apologized and you've told them you're sorry for what your part in, indoctrinating them in some certain beliefs that you don't have anymore. And you were humble about it and you were kind. And so of course they don't have the kind of trauma you have, and I thought to myself, if certain people sat me down and apologized to me and made me feel validated, it would be very healing to me. But I haven't had that. So that's why I'm like, we gotta fight this and we gotta do, I'm like, plus it's my personality. But yeah, the family is good. Sorry, that was a very long answer, but
no, it's beautiful. It's
from the
it's
hip.
interesting. We're all kind of in a similar place in that way. Like, I think, Carrie Jo and I both can relate to a lot of what you just shared.
Yeah,
Our husbands have been profoundly supportive. And, even though we've been in different places at different times, and it's still just amazing that our marriages have lasted throughout deconstruction. It's
strengthened,
it's a blessing,
I would say,
if you want to call it that.
Well, it strengthened my marriage because I stopped telling him he needed to be my leader. You need to lead me. You need to pray more. You need to do this better. And, how annoying could that be for a man to be like, are you kidding me? You are perfectly capable of doing this, Leslie. Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, well, the church tells me, and I need to submit to you. And I remember being taught once that when God's arm swings, his right arm swings because he's angry. If you are bowing and submitting to your husband, he'll hit your husband, but not you.
Oh my goodness gracious.
You guys are horrified at that. It's true. Yes, I know. I remember being taught that. And I think I even probably taught it because it was such a powerful imagery to me. And, as a
Right.
joke, like, ha, 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 ha. But in reality, it's like my husband's like, I don't want that right arm swinging me down. Like, are you kidding me? Like, take responsibility, Leslie. You are not, this just like beneath me kind of submit it. You don't have to submit to me like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're equals in this marriage.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would say probably my husband's favorite day of our marriage this is when I told him that I recognized now that I was not his Holy Spirit.
Oh, yeah.
And that was shortly before we deconstructed, and it completely revolutionized our marriage because I
Yeah.
kept trying to put parameters up for him, like, you're not doing your Christianity right,
Right.
and this is how you need to act and to be and do, and it's so humiliating to even say now, but
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
my dogs are in the
no,
background
it's fine.
sometimes, but
Yeah, I have 2 dogs. Carrie Jo has a dog. I've
Yeah.
got kids and a husband, and yeah, it
yeah,
just
yeah,
is
yeah.
what it is. But I have a question if you don't, Carrie Jo.
No,
Yeah,
of
go for
course.
it.
What would you say that you've held on to from your Christianity? Because a lot of our deconstruction is figuring out what we don't want to hold on to, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's very important that you think as you're going through deconstruction, not just about the negative things, but the positive things that you want to take with you. And that's
Right.
one of the things I do with my clients now, because I'm a coach. I help people through transitions like empty nesting or moving to a new place like I did coming to Utah, or deconstruction. Sometimes it's a faith transition, and I always tell them, it's important that you list out the things that you really found helpful in your journey, because it's not all bad. There are good things. And I think some of the things I learned in Christianity, like how to really fully surrender to something and give your heart to something, that was a big deal. And I want to do that again. I'm trying to find things that I can just surrender my heart to, and just, and I'm finding I'm just following love now, just whatever that looks like in the moment. Um, and I think it's just relationships and community, that was a really big deal. The thing I missed in that community, though, was like the authenticity. I feel like everybody was, afraid to be 100% authentic, because then you would turn into the prayer request, quote unquote, which would also be gossip. And, it would expose that maybe your faith maybe isn't as strong if you're feeling depressed, because you're not supposed to be depressed if you're a Christian. You've got Jesus. What's wrong with you? Just tap into Jesus. And I just feel like that kind of stuff I'm glad to be done with. But like the community, I've always been a connector and a community girl. So it doesn't matter where I go, whether it's my neighborhood or the gym or whatever, I try to find good community. I love my connection with God. I still pray, but it's just very different. I still believe in God. I know some people who deconstruct don't. It's okay. You can believe what you want. Like the way I look at it, I do believe there is a God. If there isn't, it doesn't hurt me to believe that. And if there is, like, I just feel like it doesn't matter. My kids could say all day long, Mom, you are not real. I don't believe in you. I don't believe that you exist. They could say that all day long, and it wouldn't make it not true, because I am. And if God is, then it doesn't matter. If you don't believe, like, his relationship with you is based on his love for you, not your belief in him. And so, I don't know. I see it so different. So there are things that I really loved about my time in the evangelical spaces and in ministry. But, I just choose to look at the positive, the things that I've gotten from it. And then the things that are toxic or the things that have brought me fear or anxiety, I don't deal with that anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I'm curious. You've touched on what you're most grateful from your Christian past. I know that you mentioned you've shared very openly on social media once, you felt like you couldn't kind of continue this double lifestyle.
Yeah.
I have a similar experience. That was actually a really huge step to freedom for me, just feeling like, okay, it's out into the universe now. I feel like I can just be myself. And
Yeah.
for me, I'm still processing through anger of the things that I was taught or the things that I wasn't taught, the ways that I was indoctrinated and things like that. So I get where people are coming from when they come at me in the comments or in my messages. Like, I understand it. I was there a few years ago. I'm curious, though, because Leslie, I've honestly marveled at the way you respond so graciously. I mean, I remember one time you responded really kindly to somebody, and I came under your comment and said, like, basically what I was thinking, because I don't know these people, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the hell, people? I mean, they are coming for you.
Yeah, they are.
So, a couple questions about that.
Okay.
One, how do you manage it so graciously?
Mm.
And two, what kind of boundaries do you set in place to protect your mental health when it comes to those kind of attacks that can feel very personal?
Yeah. Golly, great questions. And I get the anger, Carrie Jo. I really do. I get the anger. I still feel it sometimes. I think what I try to do, though, because the anger, for me, I went through an angry phase, but it was when I was silent. It was when I wasn't saying anything. And I think dealing with those emotions in therapy and in coaching and kind of working through it through journaling and just spending time alone was essential for me. Because what I've realized is that the reason that people respond, they're not really responding to me. They're responding to their response. They're very scared. I put myself in their position. Why are they responding? Why would you say that to me? Oh, I know why you would say that to me. Because you think I'm going to hell. You think you have the answer and that I have had the answer and then I turned away or I was never part of you in the first place. That's a horrifying feeling. So the people that respond with the most passion towards me, I just tell myself, they must really care about me a lot. I try not to take it personal because that's honest to God, most people, they're not trying to be jerks, but they have been indoctrinated to say, I am right, you are wrong, you're going to hell. And if they really care about you, they will raise a stink because I used to. I know. So I try not to take it personal. I try to say, I get where you're coming from. I understand. I have felt this way before. I know exactly where you're coming because I do. It's like speaking two languages. I speak evangelicalese and I speak deconstructionese. I get it. I get both sides now. Whereas before, I only had the evangelicalese and I could only speak that language. Now I understand from two perspectives. And I understand even more that most people don't.
Yeah, wow. That's some wisdom right there. Mic drop.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get old. You just get wisdom,
Right.
And I do think, honestly, I had to go through the anger, though. I did. Like, I'm not trying to downplay how hard that was because I am a nice person and I love everyone. Like, every person I meet, I want to know your story. I want to be your best friend. I want to hang out in sweatpants and have coffee or even a glass of wine. Let's hang out and chat about life. But when you feel that way about people, when you are that loving towards people and you think they're going to hell, the way that you respond can come across as desperate. And desperate doesn't bring about anything good. So what I try to do is just calm the situation by being loving. And I don't know. But, there are some people that are just mean. They're mean. So I just block them.
Yeah.
And you asked about my boundaries. My boundaries are, I had this one woman. I'll give you an example. I love her so much. I worked with her on Christian radio. Such a lovely, lovely human. But she's terrified for me. And she sent me private messages over and over again. I've listened to your podcast. It makes me want to throw up. You are so deceived. You are so on the wrong path. And I know she's not doing that to be ugly. She really is scared for me. And I understand that. So I wrote her a note finally after the, several emails that I got. And I said, okay, I am going to block myself from you because clearly I am bringing something out in you that is making you uncomfortable. that makes you feel anxious and it makes you feel fear. And I don't want to be a source of that in your life. So I'm going to block myself. I really did block her, but I didn't want her to think I'm blocking you because you don't agree with me. It's not that. It's just that I don't like that I'm bringing that out in her, because that's not who she is. She's not that person. She is lovely and kind, and I know her heart is right. And like, that's the whole thing. I think we have to understand people aren't out to get us. They really are scared. If you deal with the anger and the fear and all of that in your deconstruction, then, as you go through it, you start to understand why people do what they do. And I think if you can stop taking things personally, if you could put that on the shelf and say, you know what, that's not serving me, then it changed my entire perspective. And I'm not sure everybody is ready for that. Like I said, you have to go through the anger. Like, I had to go through it. The thing is, when I was going through my anger phase, I was not being vocal about what honestly, I didn't even realize what was happening. All of a sudden, for like a year, I had road rage. And my kids were like, we don't want to be in the car with you. I don't even know who you are. Like, I would flip people off. I would say words that girls, I don't say. And it felt so good. And I was so mad. And then all of a sudden, one day I went, what is that? Where's this coming from? And so I did the hard work, went to therapy, figured it out. It's because for so long in the church, I was a woman who was on the radio but didn't have a voice. It was so hard to be a woman in a man's world where everywhere you go, you got to make sure your buttons are buttoned all the way up so you don't make men stumble, where every time you speak, the men leave the room because they're not allowed to hear a woman speak, because, Eve was the source of the temptation, everything was so, I was walking on eggshells my whole life. And for some reason, when I'm in a car, the people, I didn't have to look them in the eyes. I could get mad and they didn't even know. And it felt really good to express it, And as soon as I realized that, the road rage went away. It was odd. But like, that's the kind of thing, like when you're going through an anger phase, and sometimes I do, I just try to stay offline. I'm like, because this is going to trigger me. This is going to make me mad. So I don't know. It's kind of like it's a balance. You kind of have to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
Right. Right. Every now and then I get this urge. I'm like, I haven't rocked anybody's boat in a while. And so,
yeah.
And I don't just like manifest things to post.
No,
it's just genuinely something I've been thinking about a lot. So whatever it might be. The last thing I posted was a bunch of questions that I had asked as a believer, and then the thought terminating phrases that would be used against it. So, like, well, why did God let my neighbor's kid die of cancer? Well, his ways are higher than our ways. That's a thought terminating phrase, right? And so, like, some of those things I just float out there, and most of them don't get a lot of engagement, shall we say, like not a lot of likes, shares, whatever, and that's fine. But I know people are seeing it, and I know people are resonating with some of those questions, and I'm trying to like work through that anger, like you said, and I think it is diminishing. Like I think I'm in this phase of it. I'm through the major hump of anger, but there's still some there, and I'm still working through that. But
and it's healthy.
It's important for people to see.
I want to express that. It's the healthy part of deconstruction. It is very important. It is part of the grief process,
Exactly.
And you are saying goodbye to what you thought your life would be. So there is grief, and there is an anger phase of grief that must be dealt with. And everyone does it differently. And like, just because I'm telling you this is how I'm doing it, I would never tell anybody this is how you should do it. Like, we all know who we are. We all know what our voice is meant to say and what our heart is bent towards. And like, we're all so different. So like, what works for me may not work for someone else. When I initially came into the deconstruction space and decided to have a voice, I think my goal, I don't know, it was a Pollyanna thing. I've always been a connector, like I said. I wanted to build bridges. I wanted my evangelical friends to listen. Just listen. Stop it. Because like, I know what you're doing. You're not listening to understand. You're listening to respond. You can't wait to tell me how wrong I am because this Bible verse says this, according to your translation. You know, and so I really wanted to build a bridge. I was like, guys, listen, you know me. You know that I was the real deal. You know that I was fully 100% sold out for Jesus, right? And if I'm in this place, there's a reason. Will you please just listen to me? And I was hoping that would happen. But instead, I got, well, I guess you were never really one of us. I guess, you know, you were deceived. You just followed the enemy right on out of the church, you know, and it was like, really, guys, did you not know me? Did you not understand, you know? So I don't know that there's a way to build that bridge, but I think I am this ever optimistic Pollyanna, please God, because I know that's what Jesus wanted for all of us was unity. Like, can we just listen? And I think that's why I try not to be angry, because anger, I mean, it doesn't produce anything good. You know what I mean? For me, for what I'm trying to do, it is not going to. But like some people, their voice, we need angry people. We need people who that's their calling, is to go out there and be like, all right, here's the deal. Like, this cannot happen. You know, we need that too. But like for me, I'm more of a hopefully a peacemaker, or, you know, I try to nourish that instead of the anger to try to build the bridge. I don't know. Am I crazy? What do you think?
No.
I think it's a great goal. Yeah.
I mean, obviously we can build bridges lots of different ways.
Yeah. And I think, and there's can be several bridges. You know, you don't have to cross my bridge. Go cross the guy that's mad's bridge, you know, and see, maybe that's how you learn, is through argument. But you know what? When I hear argument, I retreat. I retreat internally. I retreat externally. I don't like that. That's not going to speak to my soul. So why would I think that would speak to someone else's soul? I'm trying to find, y'all, what is it? There has to be a secret to being able to get people to understand that deconstructionists we're not your enemy. We're trying to build our faith. You know, some of us, yes, we lose it in the process. We do. Because you know what? There's so much hate and so much, I mean, every time somebody treats me like junk because I've left evangelicalism, it confirms that I did the right thing. It doesn't make me want to go back.
Right.
You know, I do want to say, though, I had a pastor when I first, I mean, like literally the very first podcast I was on last summer. He reached out to me. He was a pastor at one of the churches I went to. And yes, I was hurt in this church, but not by him. And he reached out, and his wife reached out. We listened to your podcast. Oh my gosh, we just want to say we are so sorry if we have done anything to hurt you, to make you feel less than loved. Like, it was the kindest. I bawled my eyes out. And I'm not even kidding when I tell you, the only people who responded with I'm sorry. And they didn't even need to apologize. Like, they didn't do anything wrong. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking, if more people would just go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you went through that. That's not my experience. You know, I don't feel that way. You just must be reading it wrong, or you must be, and gaslighting you into thinking it's all your fault. Just take some personal responsibility. Like, did you do something to make somebody feel that way? If so, it's okay if you apologize. That can only build something, not destroy.
Right.
And it gave me hope. I thought, oh, this is how this is going to go. I'm so excited. And it's not how it went. It was with them, and I'm thankful, and I love them. Thank you, Peter and Karen. They're amazing.
And they're still active as pastors of a church?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
That's amazing. Honestly,
lovely people.
There are people in my life that I wish they would apologize. Not that it would change what happened or how, you know, their indoctrination affected me, but damn, it would be so powerful just for them to recognize, okay, I did do some harm and I'm sorry, you know?
And the people who are apologizing are not the people that should be. You know,
I haven't had an apology yet. So
yeah, the people that could be apologizing are still, they're the ones that say, oh, you were never one of us. Because they're you know what I mean? Like, it's that
Right.
mentality of us versus them, of you're wrong because you don't believe this specific way. That wasn't even a belief in the church until the 1600s or
Right.
the 1800s. You know what I mean? Like, but it's so essential, and you're a heretic if you don't believe it this way. So I don't know. I think that
Unfortunately, that's what religion does.
yeah,
I mean, any religion,
yeah,
it creates the dichotomy of, well,
us versus them.
dualism. And so you find yourself, not, I think there's a lot of dualism in life, even outside of religion, obviously, but it creates opposing sides, it creates this very distinct, I believe this, you believe that, or whatever, and we're constantly creating tension within those systems that is impossible to eliminate unless you are willing to recognize it, and see
Exactly.
it as a detriment to relationships.
Well, and I mean, even in deconstruction, I'm so afraid I'm going to do that. It's us versus them. It's scary. I don't want to turn into a fundamentalist about anti-fundamental. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to find
Become
that
a
balance
fundamentalist all over again. It kind
all
of
over
defeats
again,
the
just
whole
in a different
purpose.
way. Like, oh, I hate
Yeah.
Christians. No, I love them. I love them. And I understand why they feel the way they feel, why they believe what they believe. I'm not trying to change that. I'm just trying to be accepted for what I believe now. And it's hard when fear is in the way.
Yeah. So many thoughts go through my mind as you're sharing your story, because for me, part of the reason why I don't show my face on the podcast is, and I've shared this before a couple of times, is just I have dear, mainly family, that I don't want to go through that process of broken bridges or the us versus you type of thing. Because right now we have these really great relationships and we don't talk about our faith, honestly.
Yeah.
And they're very devout Christian and I'm not. And so I know as soon, and because we don't talk about our faith, they leave space for us to be ourselves. And that's very appreciated. But I know as soon as, because I think they're still, not I think, I know they're under the assumption that we're still believers. So I know as soon as they find out, it's going to change everything.
Yeah.
It changes everything about how they interact and how they, what they think about, how much they sleep at night.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So many things. Like, I literally would be willing to tell anyone other than them.
I know. No, I get
about this.
And yeah, and that's the hard thing for me, being out there, being very vocal about where I'm at. There are family members who I know are very concerned about me because they're talking about me behind my back and I hear about it. But then there are family members who, like, I reach out to and say, okay, I know you're aware of where I'm at. Thanks for not making a big deal about it. I just want you to know I'm good. I'm in a good place. I'm happy. I'm right where I believe God wants me to be. And they're just like, you know what? Who am I to judge? God loves you. I love you. I'm proud of you. That was my stepfather, who he's very, very evangelical Christian, very, Trump rules the world, so like for him to say that to me, I know that's hard for him. I don't know. I think for me, like, I get where you're coming from, Anna, because it would be a lot easier just to pretend. But like, I can't because of, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's something that was inside of me that had to like speak out. And, but like there are some certain people I just haven't spoken to, like, people who I was very close to haven't even reached out. And I don't know if I'm supposed to reach out to them or if they're supposed to reach out to me or if nobody's ever going to reach out. I don't know. But it's just very odd because I don't know what to say.
Right.
I'm hoping they just listen. Just listen to my podcast and you'll know where I'm at. Just listen, hear my heart. I'm not trying to bring the church down. I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to blow bridges up. I'm trying to build them. Man, that's the hardest part, I think, is the way people see me now. They lose respect for me. They think I'm deceived. They think I'm, bringing people to hell with me. I don't know. It's
Well,
a
and at
lot
the
to be
same
afraid
time, you're
of.
creating a whole new listening group that is thinking the complete opposite. They're
Right.
grateful for the content you're putting out,
Yeah.
and they're being built up, and bridges are being built in that just a different direction.
Yeah.
A different group of people, and I get that, and that's I mean, a large motivation for what Carrie Jo
What
and I
you're
do.
doing.
Obviously, we
Yeah.
know how hard it was for us to go through deconstruction, and I mean, we use that term loosely. It's just a term that's thrown around so much, but and learned how to reconstruct. What does reconstruction look like
Yeah.
for us? And
Is that
and that's
important
been
to you? You know,
Yeah.
and that some people it's not. For me, it's very important. I
Yeah.
think I'll be and reconstructing like the rest of my life. I think because to me that makes sense that we
Right.
should question things that we're taught that are this is the truth. Okay. Well, let me do some research.
Yeah.
And that's
Sure, I
part of the
believe.
reason why our show is called Heretical Hippies. I think at first it kind of made sense, like kind of lightheartedly in a way, but
Yeah.
now I realize that we actually want to look back pretty regularly and think to ourselves, I can't believe I thought that last week
Yeah.
or last
And you
month or
do.
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even listening to some of my first podcasts from January, I'm like, oh wow, I've come a ways since that, and that's okay. That's part of the
Right.
process. Like you're not going to stay the same. The Arrested Development.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so arrested development is when you just stop developing, where you just like hit the ceiling. You're done. I have all the answers. I have everything I need. I know the truth. Nobody else does. I am done. Okay,
Yeah.
that was me for a long time. But then the ceiling sort of broke open a little bit when I went on Survivor and I started exploring and seeing and progressing. And so now I would say I'm more of a progressive, woke Christian, which I think they say that as in a mean way. But to me, it's like, well, do you really want to be asleep? Is that what you
Right.
want? You want to be asleep? Because I like being awake. I like being alive and seeing the different ways to look at life and the ways that people believe and like loving them right where they are without having to make them believe exactly the way I do. It's
Yeah.
so freeing to be
really
in this
is.
space. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
It takes
That's
so much
awesome.
pressure off. And
Yeah.
Anna and I have talked about this before, how every new relationship, ongoing relationship, whatever it is, always was built off of an agenda.
Mhm.
It was an
Yeah.
agenda to either find out, are they a believer? If so, cool, we can do a Bible study together, or correct their doctrine or whatever.
Yeah.
Are they not a believer? And if not, then now I know how I'm going to sprinkle in spirituality in the conversations, right? And then
Right.
eventually
Yeah.
lead them to Jesus. And man, that was constantly hovering over me
Well,
as a
yeah.
Christ follower all the time. And I felt so free when I could actually just engage with people as people and just enjoy them for who they are and not
Right.
give a shit about whether they have any form of spirituality at all, or if they
No.
are Hindu or Buddhist or whatever. Just ask questions and learn. And it's like adding salt to a really bland meal, like it just makes it
Yeah.
so much more interesting and better and palatable, honestly. Like it changed the way I interacted with people so profoundly.
Well, and it's
Same.
probably changed the way you live your life.
Absolutely.
When you get indoctrinated to thinking that you have all the answers and that you are the mouthpiece of God and that if people didn't know you, they would go to hell. I mean, okay, for one thing, really?
I know. You say that out loud, it sounds so culty, right? Like, what?
Wait, what? Like, am I really that powerful? And like, if we're that powerful, why aren't we doing things to change the oppression in the world rather than trying to get people to believe what we believe? Because that's what Jesus did, right? He didn't try to get people to believe what he believed. He just tried to lighten the load of oppression and, open the doors of acceptance and love and kindness. And to me, I don't know. I think what we experience in evangelicalism is like, and I say this in my book too, I use this example. It was like I was in a womb and I was very comfortable. A baby in a womb, they're right where they want to be. They're comfortable. They're getting everything they need. The nourishment comes right from the mom. There's no reason to want to leave. Why would they ever want to leave? Well, they don't. But you know what? The contractions start coming. And the contractions for me were the doubts and the questions and the what's happening to me? Why do I believe this way? What is happening? Do I believe this way? And the contractions got closer and closer together until finally I was born into this new world. And I looked around and I was like, I can't believe I thought that's all there was. Because this
That's a
world,
beautiful analogy.
it is absolutely beautiful. And look at the colors, and it's not all just one color, and it's not like just the same food every day. Like now I get to taste different foods and I get to be with different people and I get to see people face to face, eye to eye. It's just I just feel alive now. And I would not have given up my ministry on Christian radio. I would not have given up my ministry as a speaker or a writer. I wouldn't have given up my assurance of heaven if I didn't feel very strongly that what I believe now is true.
Absolutely.
I
mean, I think that's one of the really awesome, fun things about talking to you, Leslie. I feel like I can relate so much to what you're talking about. And just we're all mamas, that raised our family in the church. And we were very devout, all three of us, like just so strongly committed and convinced and deeply in love with what we were doing and what we believed. And now we're at totally different places, and we never would have imagined that we would be here. If somebody had asked me when I was deep in my faith, like, you think you'll ever walk away from the church?
No way.
I'm like, and I use that
joking?
term, the church, right?
Yeah.
As a whole. And I would have been like, are you kidding me? Never in a million years would I ever do anything like that. And here we are. So it is literally like refreshing drink to listen to you share your story.
Thank you.
Because I can relate, like I said, I can relate to so much of it. So
can I do something with you guys? Or with
sure.
you? I want to do an exercise with you because I feel like we're all very similar. And this exercise for me was so helpful in, like, if you could sit down with evangelical Carrie Jo or evangelical Anna. Carrie Jo, you sit down with your evangelical Carrie, and Anna, you sit down with Anna. What would you say to her?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is, Anna, do you know those doubts that you had about X, Y, and Z? They're there for a reason. Follow that. And don't be afraid. It's going to be okay. I think just to, like, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Definitely. You're not alone. In so many words, I would say something like that. What about you, Carrie Jo?
It's so tricky because, like, Leslie, when you said, if somebody had said to you, oh, you're going to leave the church in X number of years, I just immediately went to, like, us being on the mission field in Nigeria. We served there for 7 years. And I mean, that's your whole life, right? Like, you do support raising. You are reporting back to people who are funding your mission, like, it's a major, all-encompassing, overwhelming part of your existence. And if I were to say something to that, Carrie Jo, man, I don't know. I feel like there's nothing I could say that would necessarily change the trajectory, and nor would I want it to. Now that I'm out, I wouldn't want to go back and say anything to change my trajectory out of Christianity because I'm loving it on this side of it. But I like, Anna, what you said about, if you have questions, you have those doubts, don't be dismissive, but be more curious about them. And I don't know that it would be possible, given how indoctrinated we are in the echo chambers that, we bounce around in evangelical Christianity. I'm not sure I would have felt like I actually had permission to do that. But I wish I did have permission. In fact, it's really funny. There are previous episodes that I've talked about my relationship with my mentor and how, I mean, she mentored me for 20 years. We talked once a week, even while I was in Nigeria. Like, it was a high priority thing. Lots of, just the agenda was discipleship. At one point, when I knew I was drifting away from her and what I believed or what I was thinking about, and we were still meeting and talking, but I kind of dreaded it because I'm like, I can't just keep faking this, like we are not even in the same room anymore. Like, this is just not making sense. She said, when I was telling her I was just really struggling with prayer, and that was the major thing for me that just unraveled my faith. She said to me, she probably doesn't even remember saying this, but she's like, Carrie Jo, it's okay. Like, God can handle your questions, just wrestle with that. God can handle that. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm just going to stop praying, because I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, then I'm done. She kind of gave me permission that she didn't know she was giving me permission to walk away, but like, that's literally what I did. And so I think I needed somebody to say that, like, you have permission to stop something that you feel like isn't working anymore. And that was super freeing. And my mental health started to get better when I did that. So yeah, man, that's a really good exercise. I feel like I need to think more about that.
I know. I think I'm going to be thinking about that one for a few days.
What was your answer, Leslie? I'd love to know what you said.
Well, I think I look at when this deconstruction first started, and I was in the anger phase of my, I don't know, deconstruction and grief. And I think I was mad at her. And so I would have, stomped on her grave. I would have been like, how dare you? You didn't even think for yourself. You didn't, like, I was just mad. But today I would say to her, your heart is in such a good place. You love so deeply. You taught me how to surrender my heart to something 110%. You taught me how to love people. You taught me so much, that I want to bring with me. And I think I would say you did everything you did from a heart of love. I'm not mad at you anymore. I love you. I'm not you. And then I think I'd leave flowers on the grave instead of stomping. Because I just, I think about how real it was for me. And I get mad, but I'm also like, but there was so much good that came from it. I think I realized in my sister Christian days that I do want to live my life loving people. And I will fight for that, and I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. But I will fight to love people because they're worth it. And I would also tell evangelical Leslie, sister Christian, whatever we want to call her, I would tell her it's okay to question authority. It's okay if somebody is doing something that is not loving. You're right in wondering if that's right. Keep following love. Just keep following love. That's what I said.
What a great question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I try to keep this around an hour. I definitely know we're going to go a little bit over today, but I feel like we could probably talk for quite a while longer, actually. But first of all, I was going to ask you, how do you want to inspire people? But I think it's kind of obvious, Leslie. You your podcast and your mission to coach people, and you have a heart to help, and it's beautiful. And thank you for doing the good work.
Oh, I literally love it. Like tonight, it's the third week I'm meeting with a group. It's a group coaching experience I call religious rehab. And and it's like, I can't, like, Wednesdays are my favorite day because I know that tonight I get to meet with these people and we go through certain things and like just seeing the light come on in their face and the way that they're just letting go of fear. I think I was actually thinking about it this morning. I was driving somewhere and I was like, if I could say that there was one thing that motivates me the most to do this, what would it be? And I think it would be helping people to get away from out from underneath of all the fear. There's just so much fear.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks
So
for sharing.
yeah, thank you
Uh,
so much. I was
I'm a little passionate today. I don't know what's going on here.
I
I
love
think
it.
I
it's just
love it.
the feminine energy, maybe. I don't
Yes.
know. It's
Bunch of
just so fun.
firecrackers.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that your experience on Survivor
Yeah.
influenced a great deal of your change in life.
Mhm.
Can you go into that a little bit more? Like
Yeah.
what
Yeah, definitely.
specifically?
Well, I think, going on the show, I was absolutely terrified the whole time. Like in the very beginning, you remember the Buddhist ceremony, scared of that. So I walked out, Would I do that today? Probably not, because I know that God is more concerned with my heart than he is with my behavior. And so, but in that moment, I did the right thing for myself, because I was like, I don't want God to think that, it's like, I even said afterwards, I was like, well, if I was like married to my husband and I made out with the neighbor guy, you know, how would my husband feel? And if I said, but honey, I thought about you the whole time, he'd still be like, yeah, but you made out with the neighbor guy. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I was like, I don't want to give the impression. I was so afraid I was going to lose my job. I was so afraid I was going to disappoint God or make him look bad, that it completely sabotaged my game. Like the whole time I was there to be a witness. I was praying for my tribe every day. I was, trying to share the gospel. I was doing the things, and I did a good job of being Sister Christian. I really did, but I didn't play Survivor. And I wanted to be on that show for 5.5 years. I auditioned 11 times before they finally called me. And then I get
Wow.
on and you know, I'm so whacked out and afraid that I can't even play the game. Um,
Mhm.
and so that was kind of a thing that started me going, wow, something's controlling me. And I realized it
Mm.
was fear. And then to know my friend Todd from my tribe, was gay, and doing the research into that. And then, also the way people would talk to me about how Christians had treated them. I came out of my bubble where I was around Christians all the time. All of a sudden, I'm dropped in the middle of the, Chinese jungle with like a guy from Louisiana who digs graves, a woman from Boston who was a lunch lady. We had a surfing instructor, a hiking instructor, the gay Mormon flight attendant, a waitress with a big mouth from New York. It was like all these people from all over the place telling me, they know that I'm a Christian, because in the beginning I walk out and I talk about Jesus. And they all wanted to tell me the last time they went to church, what they wore, but like they didn't know how to talk to me. They thought,
Mm.
and they were afraid I was going to judge them, because
Mm.
they had been so judged before by other
Right.
Christians. So I started to see how the world perceived us. One person even said, oh, aren't Christians? I know something you don't know. And I was like,
Wow.
no. And then I went, wait, maybe we are. I don't know. I don't know. I think it just, like, before I went on Survivor, every time I would speak at a women's event, I would like talk about identity in Christ and, being the best you can be and all that. And then I came back from Survivor and my messages were more like, guys, the world thinks we're idiots. We're treating them like junk. We've got to stop. We've got to start being kind. We've got to start being loving. And I realized the more I would speak that, they'd all go, yeah, yeah. But then we'd go back to doing the same things. So yeah, I think just there's a quote that I use even in my book. It's called, it's from Mark Twain. And he says, travel is fatal to prejudice. Because when you travel somewhere, you were a missionary, Carrie Jo. And Anna, were you a missionary too?
No, but
No,
I've just
okay.
traveled a lot.
You've
Yeah.
traveled a lot. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
so you know that. And so when you go somewhere, and like me coming to, where it's all Mormons here, and seeing them believing 100% that they are the only way, and like them saying some of the things that we used to say, like, I don't know, God's ways are not our ways, and we'll understand when we get there, and and it's like spiritual bypassing and all of this. It's happening everywhere, guys. It's not just in evangelical Christianity. Like every religion believes that they are right. So either everyone is right or everyone is wrong. So I choose to believe what feels right for me, because I was made different than my neighbor next door. And I was made different than Carrie Jo and Anna. And so like, I am just going to believe what feels right for me. I'm going to follow love because God is love. And I'm just going to hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think I'm going to have a pretty great life because of it. My life is so much richer now because I'm not afraid.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's
Thanks, Survivor.
yeah, right? You are
Way
a
better than
survivor.
$1 million. Way better than $1 million.
So it sounds like you learned a lot from your experience on Survivor. It sounds
Yeah,
like. I mean,
I
it
did.
literally was a turning point for you.
Absolutely. Defining moment in my life, for sure. And I'm so thankful. The relationships that I have formed, I mean, I do a fundraiser every year, you know, through Survivor. You know, it's not through Survivor, but it's like this big fundraiser we have every year in Florida. And it's people who've been on Survivor, Big Brother, you know, other reality shows, sometimes The Bachelor. We get together and we raise money, and, you know, for different charities this year. It used to be one, but now it's different charities.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have friendships that you keep in touch with from Survivor season that you're in?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Actually, I like most of the people from my season. You know, we're very close. We went through hell together.
Sure.
You know, when you go through something that difficult, and it was hell. I'm not kidding. I was only on for 9 days and lost 17 pounds because I had a parasite
Oh my
and an
gosh.
intestinal infection. I had cellulitis on my foot. It was horrible. And when you go through something like that with people, you get, it like drops your guard, and you just truly do become who you really are.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And then you have to vote them off, which is really awful, but it's okay.
So Carrie Jo and I had a couple of questions just about logistics about being on
Yeah.
the show of Survivor 2. We're really curious to know like what the relationship between the crew and the cast is like.
Well, we're not supposed to like talk to them or like, you know, even acknowledge that they're there. So we have to kind of pretend and to be honest, they kind of blend into everything after a while. Like the first couple hours are really weird. You're like, why do they keep following me? This is annoying. It's like, oh, because they need to make sure that they don't miss anything that you're saying. But yeah, and, you know, we would only see Jeff at challenges or tribal council, so that we didn't really see him much. But there were producers, and they would pull us aside for side 2 interviews, you know, where you see them. Basically, the survivors, if you're ever wanting to be on Survivor, they're really looking for people who can tell a story, because the people who are on the show narrate it. It's not, nobody knows what's going on if you don't talk about what's going on. So the producers kind of help tell the story by asking questions to the people that tell the most story, you know, who can share a story. And it's funny, I was only on 3 episodes, but I'm still one of the biggest edits in the show's history. I've had the most side 2 interviews because I can tell a story. Like, and they knew that, and they were like, "Oh, if we go to Leslie, she'll tell us." And I did. I love telling stories. And so, but people always think that's funny because they're like, "She was only on, 3 episodes." It's like, yeah, but if you're intriguing, if you can tell a story, they would love you. So try out for Survivor if that's you. But yeah, it's just the relationship with them was great. I loved Jeff. Jeff loved me. The night I got voted out, the tribal council lasts forever. They only show like 15 minutes, but it lasts forever. And he said out loud at one point, he goes, "So I'm sensing you're getting ready to vote out probably the most trustworthy person on your tribe because you don't trust her." And I went, "Oh my gosh, they're voting me out." Like, I had no idea. Like, I was so clueless at that point because I thought we were voting somebody else out. And then that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm about to leave. I couldn't believe it. So it was good. I mean, it was good. It was a good relationship. And then once you get voted off, it's funny. They go down that dark path, and you're like, where are they going? They go to meet with a psychologist to make sure they're okay. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
cool.
And they give you a Coke and a Snickers bar. Amazing. I chugged the Coke, and then had the biggest burp. It was amazing. And then I don't even like Snickers, but I was like devoured it. I was so hungry. But yeah, and then they give you food, and interview you, and you have to go see a doctor and make sure you're okay and all that stuff. So they take good
Do you
care
go
of
to
you.
a resort until the show is done filming, or how does that work?
Well, when you're one of the first ones voted out, I was like the third one voted out. And after the first 6 of us were voted out, they took us. We were at like a resort. Well, it's not really a resort. They were bungalows that it was not nice in China. But once we were all 6 together, they sent us on a whirlwind trip of China. So we went to Shanghai to a 5-star hotel and got a massage. I'll never forget. Sharia and I were roommates, and we were looking at each other, getting massages in our bedroom, like looking at each other, just cracking up laughing because it's like pouring rain outside. And we're like, those suckers. It was so funny. And then we went to Beijing, went to the Great Wall of China, went to Xi'an and saw the Terracotta Warriors. We went to the Tiger Leaping Gorge. It was really cool. They had to keep us in China, but they kept us entertained and gave us a stipend, so it was a really good adventure. It's just all of us were so deathly ill that it was like we could only enjoy it for a little bit, and then we had to go rest in the hotel, but it was great. It was a good experience, and definitely got really close to everyone.
That's awesome. It's so cool that you still have relationships with everybody. It's so fun to know that. But I'm really curious, do they genuinely not give you any food or
nothing,
shower, like soap or anything?
Nothing. Listen, girls, I had no idea I was capable of smelling that bad. I had no idea. And the funny thing is, I smelled so bad, but the psychologist said, I think you're probably one of the least bad smelling contestants that has ever been voted off. And I was like, what? We smelled so bad. There was no food. They do give you rice that you can cook, but we were in the rainy season in a jungle in the middle of China, and it took us forever to get a fire. So that was tough. And water, you had to boil it before you could drink it. So you had to have a fire before you could do that. So they start you off with a canteen of water. But that was all I had for 3 days.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I have a parasite, so you can imagine what's happening in my body.
Right.
So I was very dehydrated.
Where do you think
awful.
you got the parasite?
China. I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere in China. And even before we were released into the show, we were there for 2 weeks doing interviews and talking to, Entertainment Tonight and all the Fox, whatever, all the stuff. So we had a lot of time there. They also send you to Survivor School where they teach you how to, do stuff that you need to know how to do when you're at camp. So we had a lot of time together, but we couldn't talk. We weren't allowed to speak to each other. And until the game starts, because they want your relationships to begin when the cameras are rolling. And so, which is great. I mean, it worked out well, but I can't remember what I was saying, but it was a
Parasite.
Parasite, very, very sick. And and I think because it was China, I just think we were in the middle of nowhere. I think I got it before we were even released, because the day that we were released, I had a little bit of a fever and I had a side pain, like a pain in my side. And I was like, do I have appendicitis? They're like, I don't think so. And I'm like, okay, so if I'm out there, I've got this little fever and I'm sick. If I'm out there and I get sick, are you guys going to take care of me, or are you going to let me die out there? Oh no, we'll take care of you. I'm like, okay. So they were keeping him really good. They were great. The doctor would come and check on, it was fine. But I got really sick afterwards.
Where do you poop and pee?
Oof, that's a great question. Far away from the camp. We had a place where we would go, and you have to dig a hole when it's number 2. You have to use leaves, that they tell you which leaves you can use. And then the place where you pee is far away too. But there was a specific area where this is where we poop, this is where we pee, and everybody knew that. And it's very important that you go far away from the camp. But the hard part is, with me, with my parasite, in the middle of the night, I was getting sick. I don't even know how to say this without being gross, but number
Just
2.
be gross. It's fine.
Yeah, it was number 2. And I would have to get up to go to the bathroom, and you have to walk so far to get to the bathroom. And it was dark in the jungle, and I was like, there's snakes and I'm scared.
Oh my
so
gosh.
Nathaniel, the cameraman, was like, listen, if you want to go, you have to have somebody come with you and I'll follow you. If you're by yourself, the cameraman doesn't follow you because you're not going to do anything. Right. But if you have somebody with you, so Courtney would always say, wake me up, mama. If you ever need to go, just wake me up. And so we would we would traipse off, and then he would interview her, and I would hear her saying, "This is so unfair. I hate that she's so sick. She wants to be here way more than I want to be here. You know, like, this is so unfair, and I just love her so much." And so it was just funny. We developed a really close relationship, I think, because she took care of me and my need. So
That's
wow.
sweet.
So you're mainly anything that you're cleaning is mainly just getting in the ocean.
yeah. Well, it wasn't an ocean. It was a lake. Lake Shailene.
Yeah.
Jaylene or something.
I forgot
and it
that's
was
on your season.
Yeah, it
that
was a mud
lake.
pit in the middle of China. Literally, it smelled like manure. Not kidding.
Oh my gosh.
The place that you were camping smelled like manure.
Yeah, everything's because there was farmland. I mean, it was, y'all,
Wow.
rat shit. It was bad.
Yeah. I'd much rather go to Fiji.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, I was so, you guys don't understand. I tried so hard to be on Survivor for so long. I finally get on there like, "You're going to China." And I was like, "Please, where are the coconuts and the palm trees and the beach?" You know, I was so upset, but it was such a, unique experience being there.
Yeah.
So I have no regrets.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay, I have a few really random curiosity questions.
Okay.
Do they give you like a set of guidelines as far as like behaviors go? Like I noticed people try not to swear, or if they do, like they'll fuzz it out or whatever. And then also, like, is there like a no touchy policy? Because like you see these little showmances pop up in these seasons, and it's like, okay, like, are they allowed to hook up? Or
I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I was only on for 9 days, so nobody did any of that when I was there. And things have changed a lot over the years. Like, when I was on it, we had a guy who was like very handsy, and like at night he would like put his leg across me, and he was so gross. And he was the poker player from Las Vegas. Anyway, he would have probably gotten in a lot of trouble in today's Survivor. Like, I think they've got more rules now. Before, you could touch, you could do whatever. But the problem is, y'all, like, I can't even explain to you how bad we smell. Like, it was so bad. Nobody was thinking like that. I don't think. I mean, I definitely wasn't. But yeah, no, there wasn't any flirting or anything like that going on, except maybe at the other camp with Jamie and Eric. And they ended up getting married. So, yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot of that. Not on my season. And there weren't really any rules at all. You could do whatever you want as long as it was, both parties were, and they had condoms that they would keep in the medical box, in case, but nobody used them.
So interesting. So it was allowable if it was consensual and you
Back
were
then,
prepared with the condom. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And prepared to smell like shit in front of each
Yeah,
other.
Like, why would you do that? Like, we're not even brushing our teeth, guys. It's disgusting. If you do that, whatever. It's your prerogative. I am not going to judge you, but I have absolutely no idea why somebody would want to do that.
Right. It's so interesting. I never thought about, like, you can kind of get a sense for the other aspects of the game, like people are clearly starving. Like you watch them diminish before your eyes, but like you don't get the smell aspect. So that's really,
you don't.
I mean, of course they smell. Like, of course they know that, but I didn't realize it was that profound.
Oh, it's profound. It's, pretty gnarly.
Man, that's wild. 17 pounds in 9 days. That's so much weight to lose that quickly.
Well, I literally, I was so sick. I'm really thankful they didn't show a lot of it. But it was brutal. While most people who go on Survivor get constipated, I was quite the opposite. And it, can you imagine having that, being in the middle of nowhere?
No.
Without anything. Like,
right.
I just have never in my life felt so disgusting.
Yeah, what like I said before we started, me and Carrie Jo are huge Survivor fans. So thank you so much for talking with us, Leslie. It's really been a pleasure. I love your podcast. I love meeting you. And
thank you.
I love your heart for people. It's inspiring, and you're just a great person to know. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
well, you all are
Leslie.
amazing too, and thank you for opening up and answering my deep question. I appreciate that.
We're all about the deep questions.
I am.
That's what we're here for.
Well, I feel like people, I think one of the biggest discoveries I've made in deconstruction is myself. And I love when other people understand and start to know themselves better. It really gets me excited.
It's beautiful. I love the process, and even in myself, and that's what I was talking about with Survivor. I love watching that process.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Carrie Jo and I are going to share, we want to share your podcast. We want to share all things Leslie Nease. It's not hard to find you on anything social media or online, obviously. LeslineNease. Just look for her and you'll find all the good stuff she's doing. She has a great website where she does coaching. And although none of us have been coached by Leslie, I feel like we kind of were today.
Kind of were. First free session.
I snuck a little bit in. I snuck a little bit. You know how I am. I can't help it.
Of course. That's great. I love it. So if you feel inspired by Leslie today, definitely contact her, because I have a feeling she's somebody that could really help you. So, awesome.
Thanks, girls.
Yes, thank you
Leslie.
too.
Okay.
All right.
All right. See you, girl.
Peace
Bye.
Peace out, motherfuckers.
That's so funny.
Well, friends, that wraps up this heretical episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to rate and review our podcast and share with anyone who would be encouraged. See you next time.